We continue our look at the history of local courthouses in the North Central television viewing area. This week, we're in Hartsville to learn more about the historic Trousdale County Courthouse. We're standing in the courtroom of the Trousdale County Courthouse. Tell me a little bit about the history of this room.
Okay, this room is the original courthouse room, the courtroom, and it was built, when it was built in the early 1900s, finished around 1906. At that time, of course, it didn't have central heat and air, and it would have had lanterns hanging from the ceiling, and the original tin ceiling is there, and it was adequate at the time. No microphones or anything, of course. And it's funny because today when we have courtroom proceedings, we have to have all this electronic device, and I keep telling people, don't complain, because when it was built, they yelled. You know, that's how you heard each other. And the upstairs balcony would be full of people, and it was quite a, and of course, you open the windows on hot days and things like that, and passed out fans. But we have restored it recently. We got a grant from the state, from TDOT, that was part of the Avery Trace development area, and so we have an Avery Trace Visitors Welcome Center, and it paid for much of the restoration of this room. We did replace the original bleachers because they were in bad shape, and put a new floor down, but we uncovered the original ceiling, which had been covered with drop ceiling in the 1950s and 60s, put in period lighting because, again, the original lighting was gone and we had ugly fluorescent lights. And pretty much the woodwork, you see, the judges stand, the benches, the doors, the light behind the judges' place, they are all original. And we have one piece of original furniture back there as well. In the upstairs balcony area, which I hope we'll see in a second, we have the original courtroom folding bleachers or benches, like you say, cast iron and wood, quite attractive. So anyway, we're real proud of it. Now, it's not up to snuff with 20th century needs, and so the county is looking at, in the future, we'll have to have a new courtroom. But for right now, we're quite proud of the appearance of it, and this is where we have our court, this our county court meetings and judicial court and quarterly courts, all those kind of things held right here.
Have there ever been any famous trials in this courtroom?
Well, actually, there have been a couple of famous trials. Tom Ryman Jr., who was murdered on a steamboat going up and down the Cumberland River, was murdered on the boat, but it happened in Trousdale County's jurisdiction. And so that murder trial was held here, and the first trial was if I recall right, the first trial was a acquittal. They didn't come, and they tried him again, and they got off the second time as well. So that was a famous trial, made national news because of that. Let's see, also there was a famous case involving a woman who found something in her Coca-Cola bottle and sued Coca-Cola. And this is way back in the 1920s, and it was quite a trial at that time too. Of course, Coca-Cola, you don't win against battling a big entity like that. Otherwise, just some good local murders and some things like that. But those are our two biggies right there. I guess that'd be about it, yeah.
Okay. Now, this is not the original Trousdale County Courthouse. Talk about just the history of the courthouses, if you don't mind.
Okay, this is our third courthouse. Well, to start with, when Hartsville was founded, it was not a county seat. Sumner County was much larger than it is right now, and Gallatin was built as their county seat, and we were just part of Sumner County. Then in the 1870s, they had a constitutional convention, and as a result of that convention, several new counties were made, and we call those counties constitutional counties. And so Trousdale County became a part became a county on its own by cutting off parts of Wilson County, Macon County, Smith County, and Sumner County. And the premise for this new county was that you had to be able to go from your home to your county seat, conduct business, and get back in one day, which people in Hartsville weren't able to do because we had to travel so far to either go to Lafayette or to Carthage or to Lebanon or to Gallatin. And so we are, by the virtue of that, the smallest county in land area in the state. Now, we're not the smallest county in people, but it's hard to believe a county have fewer people than we do, but we're the smallest county in the state in total land area. So we became a county in 1870. So then Hartsville had to be made our county seat. We were the only town of any size. Because we had not been laid out as a county seat, our courthouse was actually across the street, and it was just on the street like any other building was. So it took a few years before we could afford to build a courthouse. In the meantime, the Methodist Church was used. The old Methodist Church was used for our first county court meeting, and different buildings around town were used. In 1877, our first courthouse was finished, stood across the street, and lasted till 1900. The problem back then was downtowns often caught on fire, and if a wooden building caught on fire next to another wooden building, then the next one, and that's what happened. A building caught on fire and took down that whole side of the street, so it burned our first courthouse. It was such a devastating blow to our local economy that at that time, I'm not making this up, some people said, let's just go back and become a part of Sumner County because we can't afford a new courthouse. But of course, we didn't do that. So they rebuilt it, and within 4 years, another fire took out the whole block and took also this side of the street. The whole downtown burned, just basically the whole downtown. I can point about 3 buildings that did not survive that survived that fire. So we had to build again. Now this time though, because this side of the street was now vacant, instead of building back in the same place, they bought a whole block. And this a hotel had stood here, and so they just bought the whole block, and so now we're more of a block to ourselves. If you drive through, you see it's not quite a county square like in the traditional sense, but it has a whole block to itself. At that time, they passed an ordinance that no building within so many feet of the courthouse could be wood; it had to be brick, and consequently, our entire downtown today dates from around 1906. I think the building over here is maybe 1920, but we have had no new construction since then because that has held. It's kept fires to a limit. We've lost a few buildings since then, but it's kind of like a time capsule. It really is. And of course, our courthouse is the main part of that. And we've done a lot of work on it recently to restore the outside of it and make it look like nicer. So as we'll see, we can get an outside appearance of it.
Now, this courthouse was built in what year?
Finished in 1906, 1905, 1906, yeah.
Okay, very good. And tell me some of the features, not only in the courthouse and the courtroom of the courthouse, but other features maybe of the building that people maybe visit a lot, that kind of thing.
Well, this is where our county offices are. And when this building was built, of course, people used horse and buggy traffic. And as in all small towns, Saturday was a big day. People came from the countryside to do their business on Saturdays. And this was quite a social place. And so we had people who sat out front and whittled. You had the classic that, your benches out front, shade trees and things like that. And picnics were held here, events were held, political rallies here. We have I can go back to our local newspaper, the Hartsville Vidette, and Estes Kefauver would come to speak, or to see, of course, certainly Al Gore and his father, Al Gore Sr., let's see, and then when anyone that ran for governor would speak from the courthouse and say, we'll appear at the courthouse. And we also use this courtroom for music venues. Let's see, I've got, I think Earl Scruggs and Lester Flatt appeared here, and we have church singings here. Occasionally they have a debate between different churches over some scriptural passage. It happened right here in the courthouse. Even have plays, musical venues. Until our high school had a good auditorium, this was the place to have events like that. So it has quite interesting history. Now, our most interesting part of our history is that when Hartsville flooded back in 1926-27, our courthouse flooded, and this was not unusual for the towns of the streets of town to be flooded with backwater from the Cumberland River, and that's what we call it. We don't call it flooding; we call it backwater. So when it got closer to the courthouse, they took all the stuff from downstairs and brought it upstairs, and you actually took a boat. People have ridden boats through our courthouse, and I will show the mark, the high water mark, and they conducted business up here. The post office took all their stuff up here, and then all the general stores in town, they were flooded out. They had to take their merchandise up the street. And the water stayed up for like 10 days. That's our worst flooding ever. We've never reached that mark since then, especially since the construction of the different dams with Corps of Engineers has kept our flooding to a minimum. But occasionally we'll cover our football field still. And the last bad flood that we had in May a couple years ago that hit Nashville so bad, it covered our football field and got to the edge of the street, but didn't get back in the courthouse again.
I'm sure everybody was thankful for that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Why did you get so interested in the history of this courthouse? Why is it such a passion for you?
Well, I'm president of our historical society. That's how I got motivated in the first place. Actually, I'm a retired high school English teacher, but so in that respect, I was on the board of our local library. And our local library was trying to make people use the library more. And so 25 years ago, we said, well, let's start a historical society. We never had one. And so I attended that first meeting, and I got bitten. It's like, wow, this is neat history here. And so eventually I became the county historian when our last county historian passed away. And his name was Walter Buckingham, and he did a extensive history of the courthouse, and it brings up a local murder too. We had a murder happen in the courthouse, so we have our ghost, have a resident ghost, and if you want to talk about that, we can talk about that too. But Mr. Buckingham he researched all the records and everything, so I have his history to rely on. But it's a great history, and I enjoy telling people about it because to have so many courthouses burn, but now that's very typical. I think Macon County lost their courthouse to a fire, and well, almost all of them around here do. I think Clay County is one of the oldest surviving courthouses in the state, especially still in use. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned the ghost. I might as well ask about the ghost.
Yeah. Well, we had a gentleman here. His name was Abe Evans, and he was never married. It was just a little old man, and odd jobs, and so the court people hired him to keep the courthouse clean, and he would also sweep the streets at night. It's back in the 1950s, 40s and 50s, and a likable old fella. Anyway, he slept in the courthouse, in the attic of the courthouse. He had a little room there, and he was real sweet, no problem at all. But for some reason, someone had the reputation that he had money stuck in his mattress. That, you know, you see a little old man with wearing rags and tags, and you think, oh, I bet he has some money hidden somewhere. So someone came into his place, got to the courthouse one day, and anyway, Abe found him. And there was a scuffle, and Abe put out a knife and stabbed the man. And the man staggered down the stairs and passed out in the street and died. And so we have a murder here. Now, that's not the ghost, though. Abe was such a part of the history of the building. Of course, he wasn't prosecuted. It was more or less self-defense. That way, people claim that Abe's spirit is still here. And many people will say that if you're here late at night by yourself, you'll think you see somebody out of the corner of your eye, or a cool wind blows through, and you think, what was that, what was that? Or you hear someone walk in. I've never experienced Abe's ghost, but I did see Abe one time, and he was pretty scary in real life, so, because he's always bundled up, you know, and unshaven and like that, but he's a real nice old man. But they say the ghost is here, so.
I guess it's fair to say this courthouse has a lot of history, doesn't it?
A lot of history, and of course we'll have history and more. It's in very good shape. We recently put an elevator in, so we're handicapped accessible, and we kept it in good shape. Yeah, I'd say it's for a working courthouse now. Like I said, I don't know how much longer we'll be able to use it, because technology demands so much more of a courtroom today. Bulletproof entrances and all that kind of stuff, and separate rooms, and of course, like I said, sound systems. That we'll probably have to build a new courtroom one day, but we'll maintain this building forever because it's such a beautiful old building. Yeah.
Next month, we'll head to Carthage and learn more about the history of the Smith County Courthouse. Reporting in Trousdale County, Barry Hyatt, NCTV.